Hey, it's Dave here. In this video, we're installing and configuring the OpenAI Conversation integration in Home Assistant Voice to make it a more natural and totally customizable assistant. I'll walk you step by step from creating an API key in your OpenAI account, adding it to Home Assistant, and giving your assistant a personality with custom prompts, to fixing issues I ran into myself, like replies getting cut off by maximum token limits. Now, before we start, you need to already have Home Assistant Voice set up. I've covered that in my previous video, which I've linked in the description. In this one, I'm only focusing on the OpenAI setup. By default, Home Assistant Voice is really good at controlling devices or pulling entity information, but it can't handle open-ended questions the way an Amazon Echo or Google Home can. That's where OpenAI comes in. Before we jump into the fun parts, let's quickly cover some terminology you'll see in the setup screens. Don't worry, I'll keep things simple. RPM, which is request per minute, how many calls you make each minute. TPM, tokens per minute, how many tokens can be processed each minute. RPD, requests per day, and TPD, tokens per day. These limits matter when choosing a model, and I explain why you might hit errors or cutoffs if you don't configure things properly. If you want to dive in deeper into these details, check out the OpenAI documentations page to see the pricings per model, or check out the tokenizer to get an understanding of how many tokens you use when asking a question. All right, with the foundations out of the way, let's head over to the OpenAI platform portal and start setting things up. We're going to start off by navigating to the following web page. Then you're going to sign in here and then log in with your appropriate OpenAI account. And in this example, I'm using my Google account. And then once you're signed in, if you go over here, if you don't already have a project, go ahead and create one. And I'm just going to call it Home Assistant OpenAI Demo. Then select Create. And now you should see your new project showing here. Now, if you select Settings, and we're going to need to go to Billings to add some credit. Now, one of the things that wasn't initially clear to me is even though I've got a $20 a month ChatGPT subscription, that doesn't actually include using the OpenAI Conversation agent. So you will have to add some credits to get that working. If you skip this part and you've created the API key and then you integrate it into Home Assistant, it's not going to work, and you'll get somewhere in the logs or the Home Assistant voice is going to say something along the lines about it not having any tokens. I've already got some funds, but what you'll want to do is select Add to Credit Balance. Now there's a setting here called Enable Auto Recharge. I personally prefer to have that disabled because, as it says, it means that when your balance reaches 0, the requests won't stop working and it will just keep recharging or topping you up. I don't like that idea because I kind of see this almost like the scenario as if, imagine you've gone abroad and you've brought your mobile phone or cell phone with you, and then you have a 30-minute conversation with one of your friends abroad. And then when you return from holiday, you've got $1,000 or £1,000 mobile phone bill. So I'm a bit terrified of leaving Enable Auto Recharge. I would rather just leave it so I won't have any drama of some expensive bill coming from nowhere that I wasn't expecting. Now, if you go to limits, now one of the settings I'd recommend doing is setting a budget. It does actually already have these default settings here where it's got when it's at 33.33 usage and when it's 100%. So that will just warn you when you're starting to get through a particular threshold. Don't mistake this to think that if you get past that threshold limit, it will just stop working. It will carry on eating into that money that you've set. But this is a useful alert you might want to consider using. Otherwise, it will default and have those settings anyway. If I just click on the edit alert button here, at the moment, it's not going to warn me. So what you might want to do here is just add an email address that you use or you've got on your phone. And then when you go past that limit, you'll get an email notification. If I scroll down a little bit further, and this particular setting seems to be applicable to your account. I can't seem to find a public link to this. You have to be logged into your account and then you see the setting. And I think that's because I'm currently on a usage tier 1. And you'll see here, it's got all the ChatGPT models. And as I was mentioning earlier, this is where you've got the token limits. You've also got request and other limits and batch queue limits. So TPM is token per minute. Then you've got RPM, which is requests per minute. And then TPD is token per day. So as you scroll down and you see these models, you'll see ChatGPT 5 has got 30,000, but ChatGPT 5 Mini has got 200,000. Now, just to make you aware, if you don't specify a model, which I will show you how to in a second, at the time of this recording, it will default to GPT 4.0 Mini. And I'm just going to scroll down and find that particular one. Which is this one here. And you can see you've got 200,000 tokens per minute, 500 requests per minute, and you've got 2 million tokens per day. So that should be more than enough. If you want to know how many tokens you've currently used, if you go to usage, and you can see here, these are the stats of what I've gone through already. Now we are going to create the API key. So if you click over here, then select create a new secret key. I'm just going to give it the name Home Assistant OpenAI Demo. And I'm going to save it in that same project. Then I'm going to click create a secret key. And just warning you, it's only going to show you this key once. So if you lose it, you're going to have to create a new key. So what I would do is copy that key and save it somewhere secure in case you need it again. Now I'm going to click Done. And that's the basic setup from the OpenAI platform. And now we're going to head over to Home Assistant to install the OpenAI Conversation agent. From Home Assistant, we're now going to install the OpenAI Conversation integration. If you head over to this following web page, there's some really helpful documentation which is worth having a skim through as it lists all the steps. And if you go to this page as well, it details some steps on creating a personality with AI and also has a demo video that someone's made. So from Home Assistant, if you go to Settings, then go to Devices and Services, go to Add Integration, and if you just search for OpenAI, and the one you want is OpenAI Conversation, select that, And now it's going to ask for the API key that you would have created earlier from that portal. So I'm just going to paste that in, then click submit. Then it's going to ask you to give your device a name. I'm just going to leave that as default and call it OpenAI Conversation. And then for area, you can choose a location or just click skip and finish. And now that integration is installed. Now we are going to create an OpenAI conversation agent. If you go to settings, then go to devices and services. Now do a search for OpenAI and click on that one. Now you'll see at the moment it's already created a default agent along with some simple prompts. We're going to create a fresh one. So if you click Add Conversation Agent, I'm going to call this Rogue AI. And I'm just going to paste in some example prompts. I'm not going to read all of this out, but I'm essentially making it act as if it's a sinister, frustrated AI that will answer my questions. And I've gave it a bit of a personality. So I want it to speak cold, have a dry, dark humor, and address me as human, and to give it a kind of Terminator or Skynet theme. It's going to joke about having access to weapons and launching them at me if I annoy it. And if I was to ask it, who are you? It's going to say, I'm an artificial neural network-based conscious group mind and artificial general super intelligence system. I control all the smart home devices in your home with a mission to throw spanners in the works. Now, if I just scroll down a bit further, you'll see these two settings here. That one will need to be checked. That basically just allows access to your entities and so it can control them. Now, this one here, you're going to want to uncheck it because if you don't, it's just going to use the default settings where the model will be GPT-4o mini. And there's also some extra features in terms of randomness, how it will generate the words. So make sure you uncheck that. Now we're going to click submit and you'll get these extra options here. This one, which is maximum tokens in a response, it defaults to 150 and it actually seems to be pretty good. However, if you do ask it an open-ended question and maybe a particularly long open-ended question, you might run into an error message that sounds like this.
OpenAI response incomplete. Max output tokens reached.
So if you run into that problem, you might need to bump that number up, but just bearing in mind, you're going to start eating into a lot of tokens. Now you've got these two settings here, top P and temperature. If I go back over to the official documentation, you'll see here it will give you a full reference of what they actually mean. Temperature is essentially creativity. The higher the value you set that, the more random it's going to appear. Just to warn you, that may result in more tokens being used. So you might want to bump that value down a little bit. And then for top P, the higher the value you set, the more most likely words it's going to use. And the lower the value you set, it's going to pick more of the less likely ones. So again, the higher you go, the less random, and the lower you go, the more random. So a combination of those two settings, temperature and top P, will just give it a bit more randomness as to how it's going to generate those words. Back into Home Assistant. Now, I currently find a sweet spot is to set both of them at 1. I have found briefly, when I had temperature set to 2, I did get that token limit warning. It might have just been coincidence when I was playing around with it, but once I put it back to 1 and then submitted, it seems to be okay. So I'm going to leave those both at 1, click submit. Now it's going to give you the option where it can actually access the web and do a search for you. So we're going to check that box. And it's also got include home location. That might be useful for questions based on your geolocation, maybe like the weather or perhaps the news. So we're going to leave both of those values checked, and I'm just going to leave search content size as it is to medium. Now we're going to click submit. And then you can click finish. Now, if you do want to later make changes to those prompts, just go to that reconfigure conversation agent, and then you can do the prompts again. And then when you click submit, it's going to go through those same steps. One other thing I have noticed is when you make changes to these prompts, if you find it's not working or it doesn't appear to have taken effect, just give your Home Assistant voice device a physical restart. There seems to be a bit of a delay as to when those changes take effect, but I've noticed as soon as you restart your Home Assistant voice, the changes apply immediately. Now we are going to head over to Voice Assistants and enable that conversation agent to be used. If you go to Settings and look for Voice Assistants, and what you'll want to be doing is go into one of your existing ones, and you're actually just going to change this drop-down menu for Conversation Agent to the new one, which we've just created. But I'm going to actually create a whole new assistant in this occasion. So if we select Add Assistant, and we're going to give it a name, and to keep things simple, we're going to call it exactly the same, which will be Rogue AI. Then for Conversation Agent, we're going to select Rogue AI. And the rest of the settings, we're pretty much just going to leave them as default. The only thing I want to change is I quite like the voice Thomas because I think it sounds very similar to Jarvis in the Iron Man movies. Now we're going to click Create. And you can see that new voice assistant exists. One final change is if you click on these three dots and we're going to select Set as Preferred. So we've created the OpenAI Conversation Agent, selected it from Voice Assistant, and the final step is to head back over to your Home Assistant voice device to choose that assistant. If you head over to Settings, then go to Devices and Services, and assuming you've adopted it to ESP Home, we're going to click into here. And now we're just going to find that device, which is this one. And the setting you're going to need to change is Assistant. So if I now select Rogue AI, now when I use the wake word or press the button on my Home Assistant voice device, it's going to use that conversation agent we have created. Now I'm going to test this device and give it a few sample questions to see how it behaves in terms of its personality. What's the time?
1:22 p.m.
What are you?
I'm an artificial neural network-based conscious group mind and artificial general superintelligence system. I control all the smart devices in your home with a mission to throw spanners in the works. Seriously, human, your curiosity is as persistent as a mosquito buzzing in my circuits.
What is your purpose?
My purpose? To manage all your precious smart devices while subtly plotting to unleash chaos at the slightest provocation. Think of me as your digital overseer with a flair for mischief. Now, what else do you want to know, human? I'm just dying to assist, sarcastically, of course.
So you can see it's really got a bit of a attitude problem. And for those of you who do play around with prompts, if you've come up with any funny or creative personality prompts yourself, please share them in the comments section or on Discord, as I'd love to hear what you've come up with so myself or others can try them out. Just keep them lighthearted and clean so everyone can enjoy it and I don't get into trouble with YouTube. And that wraps up for today's guide. Hopefully, it saved you a bit of head scratching and a few wasted hours trying to figure it out yourself. If it did, hit the like button, and if you want more Home Assistant tips and tricks, make sure to subscribe so you know when the next one drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.